Hello, today is the 18th of September 2025. I'm going to go right into it to show you a clip, um, and that this will set the stage for what I'm going to talk about today. I'm actually going to show you three clips from different channels in order to make my point, what I want you to consider today. The first one is from the channel DISSIDENCE. I think I have quoted them before. I have a great deal of respect for these two guys. They're Jewish from New York, young, and basically they're going through hell because they suffer. They are at pains. I do admire them tremendously for what is happening in the Middle East. They don't agree with it, and I suppose that is, if you're Jewish and you don't agree with what is happening, it must be doubly painful for you because you are associated with it in some way. Okay, so here it is. I will continue, but first of all, this is it's a video where they talk about the Charlie Kirk assassination, and they show different clips from other videos and Candace Owens and so on and so forth. But I'm going to just show you the very end of it, where they talk about the problem as they see it of Zionism. Bear with me a second while I bring them here.
Yeah, and this is a point that many of us have been trying to make to American Jews and Jews in the so-called diaspora. Israel is not protecting you. If you are afraid of a Holocaust, you should disconnect yourself from the Zionist project immediately. Immediately. Within 2 years, they took the invocation of this atrocity that really no one would question. Very few. It was completely fringe. As soon as you said Holocaust, yeah, man, like that was a card that would shut down most people. You destroyed that. You destroyed that. At this point, people, if anything, you start saying Holocaust, immediately they're going to start rolling their eyes. That is what the Israelis did. That is what the Israelis did. They have taken this from being this sacrosanct thing that nobody would really question to turning it into something that, if anything, you get into the point, as you could see very clearly with Candace, they get angry. And with good reason because of the way it's used. But our friend Norm says it better than I can.
And then there was all of this schlock nonsense, which basically is used to defend Israel and deflect criticism of Israeli policy. You can usually tell this literature because it asserts or insists on the absolute uniqueness of the Nazi Holocaust, the claim that no people in the history of humanity have ever suffered the way Jews suffered. And that's clearly an ideological claim. You can't intellectually prove things like that, and it's almost absurd to want to prove them. The purpose is fairly straightforward. That is, if people have uniquely suffered, then they can't be held to conventional moral and legal standards. So, for example, if you say that Israel tortures Palestinian detainees, well, then you're told, remember the Holocaust. Or if you're told that Israel illegally demolishes the homes of Palestinians, you're told, remember the Holocaust. The point being that because Jews suffered uniquely, it somehow excuses these, by any other standard, crimes.
Now, Norm saw through all this way ahead of a mainstream conversation around that at the time that he first wrote his book about how the Holocaust had become a grift and an industry and a deflection. that was really, really out there. And
just so everyone knows, his parents were in the Holocaust.
His parents were in the Warsaw Uprising. But at that time, he destroyed really his academic career by taking that position. I mean, now, honestly, and it's really, you want to see a demonstration of how much the Israelis have lit the goodwill that was left from people's feelings of empathy about the Holocaust, how much they have lit that on fire. That you listen to that now, it sounds pretty mainstream now. At the time that he said that, that was a very big deal. That was not at all in the mainstream of the conversation. But he was right. Norm was right. And that's become so transparent because people are seeing every day the Israeli state commit massacres and atrocities and genocide. And whenever you call them out on it, Holocaust, blood libel, Middle Ages, it's the same exact litany of things. And that contradiction forced people to question the entire premise. For people who are Jewish, who identify as Jews in terms of their religion or their culture, who are not Israeli, you want to preserve Judaism, you want to preserve Jewish culture, distance yourself from Zionism at the top of your lungs and make it clear that that was a crazy idea that was fringe until after the Holocaust. Most Jews did not support it. The Reform Temple, which is a branch of Judaism, they didn't recognize Israel until the 90s. Most people did not think it was a good idea. Some people say, and we do know, that early Zionists did work with the Nazis to get Jews to Israel. Now, some people will say they empowered the Nazis because they wanted to motivate Jews to go there. I think the truth is, we know they worked with them. I don't think they were behind it, but did they see this as a good thing for their cause? Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, they made coins with the Nazis. That's reality. That was the Havara Agreement, I think it was called. In the end, they took full advantage of the horror of the Holocaust and the feeling of Jews that they had no choice but to go to the homeland. But that's what it took for Jews en masse to decide that this was a good idea. The Jews were an urbanized, mostly European people. This sounded like a crackpot scheme. We're going to go live in the desert. Like this idea that Zionists have sold people that this piece of land and Judaism are inseparable is ridiculous. Do Buddhists feel like they have to go back to the birthplace of the Buddha? They have to go to where Buddha taught in order to be Buddhist? It's absurd. That's a very Bronze Age religion kind of concept. That's going back to Mesopotamia. This idea that your religion is connected to the gods of that land, of the land that those gods come from. Cities had their own gods, their own statue of that god. It's a very primitive concept. If you really have a fully developed theology, you don't need to be in a particular place to practice that theology. And most Jews recognize that until after the Holocaust. And now the Israeli state has grown so monstrous in its efforts to steal that land that the Holocaust is not working anymore. I don't think even Candace Owens 2 years ago, even a year ago, would have said what she said there.
Well, not only wouldn't she have said what she said there, she was pro-Israel 2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, Charlie Kirk was pro-Israel 2 years ago. Tucker Carlson, these people were all, you had all these people. You had all these people in your pocket, and you blew it because these crimes are just so obvious. So it's as simple as that, yes.
Okay, so now that was the very end of their video. They had spent 45 minutes, perhaps 30, 45 minutes talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And they bring different videos with Netanyahu going to the first reaction of Netanyahu going to the TV stations and so on. And also the reply or the reaction by Candace Owens. I think she did 2 reactions to talking about Charlie Kirk assassination, but they're reacting to the very first one, which had, I don't know, millions and millions of views. Is the one where she's wearing a blue and white shirt, blouse, and I was going to say I'll put the link below, but I mean you can find it. So they're reacting to this. I don't want to put Netanyahu all the shows where he was because I personally I just can't watch the man. But he says in one of them, for example, that he is heartbroken. He says, myself, my family, and my son. On his actual, I suppose he's referring not to his son's visit, but to Charlie Kirk's visit to Israel in 2019. They had lunch with him, and we are all shattered. First as human beings, of course, but because he was such a great human being and he's been taken from us, he was an extraordinary friend. He wrote me a letter. He shows a letter. He wrote me a letter this year. He says, saying one of my greatest joy as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. To this, Candace Owens reacted saying, read the rest of the letter, because you have only quoted the first 2 sentences or paragraphs, and you are actually misrepresenting what he says in that letter. The point being that he was beginning to feel uncomfortable with what was happening. Anyway, so, but I want to go to this defend Judeo-Christian civilization, because whenever I hear that, a flag goes up. It's something that came into use in the 1970s, together with other words. And it seems to me that it was then when a transfer of power or a transfer of influence was taking place. Now, what do we mean by Judeo-Christian? Well, by the Judeo is what we now call the Zionist side, yeah? And the Christian is supposed to be the evangelicals, which is a heresy, and a terrible heresy of Christianity. And I'm going to show you 2 clips of 2 completely different videos talking about this. The first one is to explain what Zionism is an interview with a rabbi. Okay, give me a second here.
Gaza, with the ethno-cleansing of Palestinians across West Bank as well as the Gazan region, the confrontation with Iran, the out-and-out effort to create a regional war has never been more apparent. At the heart of it is Benjamin Netanyahu and his establishment. And what comes into question is really that originally we had a scenario where Europe basically persecuted the Jews in Europe, landed them in West Asia, and have transferred an entire problem, an entire issue, which they, first of all, dealt through all kinds of pogroms and all kinds of persecutions, and have now handed that problem to an area which was traditionally very supportive of Jews, very, very fraternal. The Muslim world has an exemplary reputation in terms of the way it handled its Jewish relationship right from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But today we find ourselves in a situation where Jews themselves are being labeled almost as terrorists because of Israel, because of Zionism. How is this impacting Jews across the world? What impact will Israel's genocidal efforts leave as a legacy for the Jewish communities up and down all sorts of different nations where they've found homes for many, many centuries? Is it possible for the Jewish community to recover from the damage which Zionism is quite clearly doing? With me in the studio to address these questions and much more, I have Rabbi Elhanan Beck of the Neutrality Studies organization, and we also have with us online via Skype from Belfast, Fra Hughes. Welcome to the show, Fra. You're head of Palestine Aid. You're an activist, as I understand it, an online YouTuber, no less, and also very much an author. And my walk with Palestine, I think, is one of the books that I've read of yours. Welcome to the show. And I guess now we'd really have to delve into what the real fundamental issue is, and Judaism, Israel, and today's crisis in West Asia. I have to ask the question, first of all, with the origins of Zionism, its relationship with the Jews of Europe in particular, and the actual relationship that is evolved between Zionism and Judaism, and in what way that happened. The guess I'm having, and one of the things which often gets ignored, is that it's possible that the Jews were the first victims of Zionism. This is an argument that I've heard. This is your field, Rabbi. Could you enlighten us?
Yeah, well, look, I will try to start it from the beginning. I will try to make it short. We have to understand what is Judaism and what is Zionism fundamentally. Judaism is a religion. It's not a race. It's not a nationality. It's a pure religion.
Adopt a donkey today and start
I'm sorry.
a beautiful friendship. You will receive a wonderful adoption.
Sorry about
God
that.
have gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai for 3,500 years ago. Since then, we were becoming the Jewish nation. The nation of Jews is not when we have a land or when we have a language or so on like this. The Torah was given in the desert. But the Mount Sinai is in the desert. Jews have no land at that time. And our rabbis explain this is why, because God wants to show that Judaism, the united of the Jewish nation, is not by a land, is not by a language. This is only by the religion, by the belief in God. So I understand for my Muslim brothers, they will understand it much better. If you will describe what is Islam. Islam is a religion. Anybody who believes in these principles of Islam, he is a Muslim. Everybody is not believing that, he's not a Muslim. Somebody will say, oh, I'm a Muslim. You will ask him, you are a believer? He say, no. So you're not a Muslim. He will say, how you can say that? My father and forefather, 10 generations already are Muslims. He will ask him again, you believing or not? He will say, no. I'm sorry, you are not a Muslim. No different. And if somebody converts to Islam, the next day, the same Muslim as you. Because it's not, Islam is a religion, it's not a nationality. It can happen that Muslim people gather together in the heaven land. It could be the land running by Muslim law, by Muslim rulership or something like that. But Islam, it's not nationality. Islam is a religion. The same thing with Judaism. Judaism is a religion, have nothing to do with any nationality. You can be Jew as a white, as a black, as a Japanese, Chinese, no difference. Everybody who converts to Judaism, he's the same Jew as me. Everybody who gone away from Judaism, he is not counted as a Jew. This is not my word. This is the word of Rabbi, one of our greatest rabbi. His name is Maimonides. He's very well known in the Arab world also. And in Sanhedrin, Perek Chenek, he puts down the 13 principles of Judaism, and then he makes clear. Everybody is not clear in these 13 principles. He's not counting as a Jew. So, it's very clearly. I must add to that he's still obligated to keep the Jewish religion. He will get punished on the other world. They will be required. Why you didn't keep the religion? However, he didn't come from Jewish parents and didn't convert to Judaism. God didn't ask them to keep the Torah. He can keep the 7 laws of Noah.
So is your argument that Zionism has forsaken Judaism?
Yes, I'm coming 1 second to the type of Zionism. This is Judaism. Judaism is a religion, have nothing to do with a land. It can happen that Jews have a land. But not this is Judaism. Judaism is a pure religion. Now we come to the point of Zionism, what you ask, I'm sorry. Zionism is a new movement, 130 years, 150 years old. I can remember, I think 130 years old. It's founded by Hertzel. He coming from Vienna, Austria. He was completely a non-believer. He was an atheist completely. And even people today, what are not so religious, but they have still a few things what they're keeping. One of the last things what even secular Jew is keeping is the circumcision for the babies. But he didn't make a circumcision for his own son, and he was proud of that. So Zionism is completely a secular movement, where they have a different look on Judaism. They try to transform Judaism from a religion into a nationality, into a materialistic nationality. Like if somebody will say Islam means having a Muslim, a country, you don't have to keep the religion, you don't have to believe in the Muslim principles, put the name of Islam on that, speak Arabic, I don't know, something like that, and then you are a Muslim. Yes, this is fake Islam. Yes, the same thing in Judaism. Zionism try to take Judaism out of context, transform that into a nationality, in making a land with a language, then you are a good Jew. No different if you keep the religion or not. This is completely fake Judaism. I say every time for the Palestinians, the Zionists, took away your land, they're occupying your land, and they took it away from you. From us, they take away our identity, they take away the religion, they take away they take the Jewish religion, empty it out from all the holiness, and fill it in with materialistic, nationalistic ideas. They do for us, I mean, of course, it's terrible what's going on in Palestine, but for Jewish people, they take away the whole religion. The whole religion. Just imagine if somebody will do that with Islam, empty it out and transform that into a nationality. He will be your biggest enemy, much more than it took away your land. That's what they done for the Jewish people, really. So Zionism, I will try to explain it a bit more and more deeply to understand. And really, I will touch a point what I have to speak later, but I bring it up just to understand it better. The Zionists, you find them often waving the flag of the promised land. And they bring verses of the Torah of the promised land. It's true that God promised land for the Jews. However, when you look in the Torah, it's very clearly, this is only conditionally, if we keep a high level of life. If not, it's written in the Torah more than 30 times that we will be exiled of the land. God gives us the land only if we keep a high level of life. If not, He will take it away.
Okay. So that was the rabbi trying to, explaining sort of how he feels about Zionism. Now, let's talk about the evangelicals. And for here, I'm going to go to another video. Bear with me. Okay, so this is another clip of a video. This is from Neutrality Studies. I follow them for politics. In this particular video, they have been discussing the Ukraine situation, many other things, NATO, the European Union, all kinds of things. And then they move on to Israel, which is what we are talking about today. And they start talking about the evangelicals. These are two professors, and let me see if I can get them here. Okay. Yes, the Christian Zionism, that is what they are going to talk about now at the end of the program. Pascal Lothar is a professor, and he is I believe, a professor too, but he has written a number of books, I believe, on geopolitics, okay? He is an Orthodox. You're going to see that very clearly. He just makes one or two mistakes that when he's talking about, for example, Senator Ted Cruz, he assumes that he is a Catholic. Of course, he's not. I have a video when Tucker Carlson interviewed him. You remember you don't remember, but I did a video about that famous when he quotes the Bible, and you have to defend Israel because of the Bible and so on, and that famous interview with Tucker Carlson. And I did explain that no, he's not Catholic. His father was an evangelical pastor. Before that, he was working with the Americans really against Cuba. They both come from Cuba, so he was actually working against his own people. That's my take on it, my understanding. And certainly, this gentleman obviously assumes that he's Catholic because if they have a Spanish surname and they come from Cuba, they come from a Catholic tradition. No, but that tradition was repudiated by his father. In any case, then he says a number of things. I don't know whether they need my comment, but just listen to this interaction now.
Shift gears a little bit and use the last 10, 12 minutes to talk about Israel, because you made this observation to me that one of the things that's little understood is the impact of Christian Zionism and the origin of Christian Zionism on the genocide that is going on. Can you maybe expand on that a bit?
So yeah, Christian Zionism, if you go back, look at it. First of all, let's begin with this. Christian Zionism is a heresy. It is a heresy that's very rampant amongst the evangelicals in the worldwide evangelicals. It is a heresy to the Orthodox Church, which being Orthodox, I'll say, is the first Christian church from which the Catholics broke in 1053. Catholics say it the other way, but it was Orthodox, I'll say it's a schism. It's a heresy to the Catholics. It's a heresy to the higher Protestants, such as the Lutherans, the Church of England, and so on. It's a heresy that showed up in 1833 by a guy by the name of a guy by the name of Charles Darby. So this guy basically said, he took a verse from the Bible, from the Old Testament, that when the Lord comes, he will call the saints to him in the heavens. I'm paraphrasing. I should actually have memorized the phrase fully. But so he built this theology that the Lord is going to come twice. So it's going to be a second coming and a third coming, or maybe second coming and second coming 2.1. The first coming is the Lord's going to come, and all his saints, which happen to be evangelicals, are all just going to teleport away. They're not going to die. They're going to teleport away. and it's over. And then everybody else, they're going to stay on the ground because they're all damned, and they're going to go eat each other and murder each other. And sometime, depending who you ask, between 7 and 1,000 years later, Christ will come again to judge all of them.
The teleporting away. Hell on earth. The teleporting away, funnily enough, is even the plot line of that movie, Left Behind, I think. Was
yes.
So that is part of the theology, and that movie actually picked that up. But anyhow, back to you.
And depends on which way you look. Do they teleport away with their clothes, or do they teleport away naked? Yeah, because different issues. If their clothes are left behind, or they just disappear. And I've actually known people that they form support groups where they go to their damned neighbor, because he's not evangelical, their version of evangelical, because thousands of different versions of evangelical. It could be a Baptist church and another Baptist church, and one is screaming they're going to hell, the other is screaming they're going to hell, even though they're both Baptists. It gets really insane when you get down to that level. But they go to their damned neighbor for support in that when I disappear and my family disappear, here's an extra key. Open the door and let our pets out so they don't die in the house.
I wonder, I mean, I have no idea. I wonder if these people really exist. I mean, that the ideology. They can be there, but I wonder. Okay.
Oh, no. These people exist. I grew up in the South. There's a lot of them down in the South. They are very, very, very real. So they need the end of the world. It's a death cult that's afraid of dying.
So that's part of the ideology. It's like the end is coming, and we are very near to the end, so near that I need to give a key to my damned neighbor so he can water the plants.
Right.
And those are the evangelical Christians that then are supportive of the Zionist idea, because you actually need.
Right. They are the Christian Zionists, and to get the end of the world, like I said, they want the end of the world, but they're afraid of dying. You know, as a Christian, I will go to the Lord and I will have my final judgment. And there's questions of how that judgment is, depending on which side of church, even inside the Orthodox Church, is done after I die. That's the only way. Job was the only one that got teleported. Everybody else gets to die, and then they go to see Christ. If you're Christian, anyways, that's the view that you could have. They want to skip the dying part, you know, the becoming room temperature part. We want to skip that, and we just want to teleport away. Kind of Star Trek like, I guess, or zap and you're gone. Yeah, I'm making a bit of a fun of it, because to us it's an incredible heresy, but it's an incredibly dangerous heresy because they act on this. So to get the end of the world, you have to have Armageddon. To get Armageddon, you have to have the third temple. To get the third temple, you have to have an ethnically and religiously pure Israel, or greater Israel. The Israelis want the greater Israel. I'm not quite sure with the evangelicals, how much they care about a greater Israel, as long as there's an Israel with a third temple. But that means it has to be Orthodox, not ultra-Orthodox, basically Orthodox Israel with only Jews, nobody else, and no other forms of Judaism. And they support that. What do you think, Huckabee and all this? And then on top of that, you get the you get this other stream in that there's dispensationalism, in that they misinterpret what the Bible says. You see, for Christians, from the beginning of the church, you have to go through a little bit of theology. I'm sorry if
I always love
it.
Didn't believe in it, but we love it. It's very well crafted.
It is. Well, the beginning of the theology is the true Jews are those that followed Christ. Yes, let's begin with that. So when they talk about the true Jews are the Christians, A. B, when they're talking about Jerusalem, and this is since the founding of the church, when they're talking about the Jerusalem, they're not talking about the physical Jerusalem. They're talking about the spiritual Jerusalem, which is the kingdom of Christ. The kingdom of Christ is the kingdom in heaven, the spiritual kingdom. As he said when Pontius Pilate was asking him, "Are you the king? Are you king of Israel?" He said, "My kingdom is in heaven." I'm paraphrasing again, but my kingdom is in heaven. I'm not the king of the physical world here, which is why Pontius Pilate said, "Well, I don't see any guilt in this man. I don't see a reason to execute him. He's not a threat to Rome, obviously, because he's not saying, I'm a physical king. I'm going to sit on the throne. I'm going to rip away a province from Rome." so the church from the very beginning was looking at this as Jerusalem is the spiritual Jerusalem. These people are looking at Jerusalem as a physical Jerusalem. And they're reading through that he who blesses the Jews will be blessed by God. And they're taking that as an actual statement, but as the people who are called the Jews now, whether ethnically, how much pure blood whoever is, I'm not going to get into that. That's whole separate issues, and that's not something I'm going to bother getting into. Let other people do it or what have you. But the theological here statement is already anti-Christian, right?
This portable heat air blaster will be in every home in the UK by 2026.
Apologies again.
So you're not going to get a blessing by blessing those that killed Christ, because that's what the church has taught from day one. Again, I'm not saying this to spark any kind of ethnic violence or anything like that, but this is the historical theological teachings of the church. And this is when the evangelicals come in. Now, if you talk to these evangelicals, it's not that they suddenly love Jews, because they'll tell you one of two things. Either they'll all convert on the last day or they're all going to hell anyways. We just need them to get the temple going and the third and the Armageddon and we just need the end of the world. You're looking at these people like, wow, you're really insane. There are ministries called End Times Ministries that do tourist trips. You can look them up on YouTube. There's a bunch of their videos on YouTube. And these ministers are standing with their tourist group of evangelicals. And here's going to be where the Chinese and the Russian armies of the Antichrist are going to be coming down, and America, because evangelical, they're going to, with God's hell, they're going to smite them here, and this is going to be where Armageddon's going to be. And these people believe this, but here's the scary part: these people are in power. Yeah, Egg Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives, is an evangelical. Hexeth is an evangelical. And they flat out tell you, Hexeth says, I dream that my sons will fight for Israel. Okay, you're the Minister of War now. I mean, defense before that of the U.S. You should be thinking a whole different line of thought there than this. And there are 80 million of them in the U.S. There's lots of them in other countries. So this is a serious issue.
I mean, the interesting thing about this argument here about the influence, the ideological driven or the religiously driven evangelicals and their distribution also in the U.S. society and the political apparatus would mean that you don't even need Israel lobby in order to explain the power of this being joined by the hip. So in a sense, and I don't think you need either or. I think it can be both at the same time. But that is a second explanation to why the U.S. acts in a way concerning Israel that we just haven't seen in international relations ever before. I just can't think, maybe outside of Switzerland and Liechtenstein, of two sovereign nations being so joined to each other that it's just not fathom.
Well, you need the Israeli lobby for the non-evangelicals, like, for example, Mark Rubio, or oh, good Lord, why can't I remember names when I really need to remember names? Rubio, or the Secretary of State.
That is Marco Rubio.
Oh, that is Marco Rubio. I'm sorry, not Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz. That's the guy.
Not Cruz. Okay.
I got it mixed up in my head. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm horrible with names. Ted Cruz, for example. Both are Catholics. Both don't care that the popes from the Vatican was protesting the murder of Catholic Palestinians, because people forget there's lots of Orthodox and Catholic Palestinians. They're about 12% of the population. That Orthodox and Catholic Christians in Lebanon are 30-something% of the population. And Syrians were lots of Orthodox Christians. They don't, literally, the evangelicals don't consider them Christians. They don't consider Orthodox and Catholic Christians. They're heretics to them. So even though they're the original church, so when they're getting killed off, okay, that's nothing big to worry about. And I've asked people that I've known, they're evangelicals, you do realize they're Christian churches being blown up. They're not real churches. It's hard to argue with that point.
So in a sense, what we're
can't change our mind.
What we're seeing is also like an inner Christian, not just disagreement, but a split, right, of Christians, evangelicals versus then people like, let's say, Now it's my turn with the names Tucker Carlson, of course, who has completely different understanding of Christianity and like the Christian group to belong together, whatever the denomination.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson actually has a much more traditionalist view, and I've been as watching his programs, it's evolving toward I would say, the Orthodox view of Christianity. It's a slow process, and there's actually quite a few evangelicals and other Protestants. Whole churches have converted to Orthodoxy, usually because the priests started they all want to know, be like the original church. Well, when you start historically looking at the original church isn't disappearing. I'm talking again from the Orthodox point of view. Catholics have a little bit different view on that. I understand, but from the Orthodox point of view, the old church never disappeared. It wasn't this mysterious entity, this UFO thing, or cryptozoology. It didn't disappear. It's still there. It's 2,000 years old. You don't really have to look far to find it. And when they start looking at it, and they start looking at theology, they go, oh. I mean, these people will never become Catholics for the most part because they despise Catholicism. They broke from Catholicism, but Orthodoxy is something new to them because they don't know it, and that's one way they get toward the old theology that is shared between the Orthodox and the Catholics. And they go and look at it and go, "Oh, we're wrong." Okay, and it's this realization. So, but the majority, of course, the vast majority in this case, they're set in the ways that they're set. And they're poking fingers between each other, between these different denomination evangelicals. Who's going to hell, who isn't going to hell. God is the only one who decides at the end of the day who's going to hell, who's not going to hell. Not some preacher, not some layman. If we're going to go down that route, right? But it does influence directly their politics, and that's the scary part of it. Now, Marco Rubio, there's a website in the U.S. that tracks how much AIPAC has favored politicians. Rubio was at 1.5 million. Cruz was at 2 million. So you wonder, why do they, as Catholics, really don't give a damn what the Pope says? Could it be something else that's influencing their decision making, like their bank account?
The one thing that was crazy is that this idea that ever the Pope would have a say over the United States, and that of course goes back all the way to Kennedy, but that never ever was the case, right? I mean, the Pope never ever had the ear of the U.S. president. The opposite is the case. The Pope rather listens and tries to interact with the president somehow. But so in conclusion, what you're alerting us to is the underestimated impact of Christian evangelicals and Christian Zionism on this entire process that then on the other end spits out genocide in Palestine.
Yes, it's even questionable what came first, the chicken or the egg. Was it Christian Zionism or Jewish Zionism that appeared first in the UK, by the way? It looks, in my opinion...
Okay, they continue there. My friend from the Orthodox Church. Okay, he's right in one aspect, and that is that many, especially American Protestants, are converting into the Catholic Church and into the Orthodox Church. I think he's right in that it is 500 years of anti-Catholicism. It's there in almost the DNA, and so it has to be very difficult for them, unless of course there is a real conversion and you're willing to get down on your knees. But it has to be psychologically very difficult to become Catholic. So it's easier to move on to the Orthodox Church, which is absolutely fine with me as a Catholic. I don't mind at all that. This is. I was just going to answer a few of the points that he made, but that is for another video. Okay, so I'm also interested in what the old rabbi said about Maimonides. Maimonides, he was a Spanish Jew, and I know just a little bit about him, so I'm going to look into him and see what he said, because I'm interested in this idea that it's nothing to do with race, not necessarily. And he separated that, the religion from the race. That is extremely interesting. I'm going to read him. Anyway, this is my video today. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.